Oh, it's fun to hunt and shoot a gun or to catch a rabbit on the run. By Magpie Mountains, Harlem Men. Chapter 3. August. It's a good month or so into spring when the ruckus of the inn cuts her kitchen wide again. The door slams. "Molly!" Tom bellows. "Full of asking for you out front. Name a Barnaby. Know him?" Millie doesn't curse, but it's a close thing. Broth is boiling, dough needs punching down, biscuits will be done any minute, and the beef's gonna burn if she takes her eyes off it. She's up to her elbows in potatoes and has no time for feelings right now, let alone a handsome, charming, no good deceiving man. "I'm busy," she shouts back and jams her knife into a potato eye, flicks out a sprout. "What's he want?" Some murmuring. "Says you brought your plate and basket." Well, she has been needing them. A month is too long to go without a good pie plate. "Send him through. I ain't got time for chatting, mind." "I'll tell him." Tom's head disappears. Millie shoves her knife back in, flicks another sprout out, reaches over to turn a bit of beef. A breath later, the door bangs out. She looks up. "Millie?" Her shoulders drop. "Gideon," she says. "You brought back my plate?" Now was that relief or disappointment, flipping her stomach over. "Sure did, Millie." He sidles in all elbows and knees. They're clean, though, as is his face and that bright hair, even if that patched net he calls a shirt's gone grubby again. "Brought you some coon pelts and a couple rabbits," he says, grinning easy as his brother. "Where do you want 'em?" "Why, child!" Millie scrubs her hands in her apron, points. "Has he shot up more since she last saw him?" "That's mighty kind of you. Over there's just fine." "Sure." The door swings to again, clamping the noise back down to sizzling fat and a stove at full roar. Gideon shuffles around her chair, peering curiously into pans as he passes and sniffing deeply. "Weren't me that sent 'em," he adds. "Adam made me. Oh, Millie, that smells mighty good." "Well, you ain't having any," Millie says, reaching over again to shift a couple chunks of beef. They're cooking nicely, going all brown and deep. "What's in here is for them that can pay out there. And what do you mean Adam made you?" "Just what I said." Gideon drops plate, basket, and bundles of fur into a heap by the molasses barrel. "Adam caught 'em himself. Told me strict to bring 'em over and thank you all polite-like for the food and your helping out. You and that Injun girl and Miss Guthrie." "Miss Lowland," she says, going to punch the dough down in the bowls. "Not that Injun girl. Mind your manners." She's unsurprised to find that Miss Guthrie has made an impression on him, though, skinny, motherless child that he is. Of course, Miss Guthrie would make an impression on anyone. Miss Guthrie would make an impression on the Queen of England, and probably out-dignify her to boot. "Yes, Millie." Gideon stuck his face over the beef now, staring at it bubbling away in the bacon grease. He turns huge eyes on her, looking for all the world like a pup that's been starving for weeks. "Oh, Millie, I know that man in there said you're real busy, but I'm real hungry." Mercy, the boy seems to have taken her like a duckling. "I can't always be feeding you, Gideon," she says, grabbing for dishcloths. "I'm not your ma." There's a warning in there somewhere about feeding strays, but she's too busy with the oven to recall it. Besides, the biscuits are done all right, fluffy and steaming when she breaks one halfways to check. "Please," Millie pulls the tray out with the cloth and steps straight into 6 foot of bones and freckles. Down goes the tray. Biscuits scatter as Gideon leaps back, yelping. "Gideon Ponape!" Millie snaps, clutching him and then a chair to keep herself from toppling backwards into the stove. "Sit yourself down this instant and don't move!" Gideon squeaks. Gideon drops benchwards. Millie hangs onto the chair back, heart hammering like a whole heap of miners, and tries to catch her balance and breath before she dies of shock or burning or, heaven help her, frying to death in bacon fat. And when does she like to explain that one to her ma? A couple moments go by like this, and then, when she thinks she can stand again, she straightens, kicks the oven door closed, bends, picks up the knife. Gideon stares wide-eyed up at her. "You," she says, and slams it down on the wood in front of him. "You are going to sit here and peel these potatoes. You are going to stay out of trouble. You are going to stay out of my way. You hear?" He nods mutely. Millie slaps her open hand onto the table. "You hear?" "Yes'm." "Good." She ducks down to gather dropped biscuits, fuming. Most have scattered across the bench, but some are floored and can't be saved. And oh, damn, the beef's burning. "If I'm late getting dinner out, Gideon Ponape, I will have your hide." He's looking appropriately terrified now. "Yes'm." He picks up a knife. Millie turns back to salvaging what she can. The next little while keeps her right busy browning meat, chopping onions, scrubbing carrots, and making up a fresh batch of biscuits. Every time she turns around, though, Gideon is peeling away industriously, eyes down. The tub of scrubbed potatoes dwindles. The pile of skinned potatoes grows. Millie mops the sweat from her face with the edge of her apron and allows herself mollified. "You can start chopping them when you're done with peeling," she tells him, pushing the bigger knife over. "Chunks like this. See? I'll do the carrots." "Yes, Millie." Millie hesitates. "And you can have a biscuit to tide you over. When the stew's done, you'll have some of that too, seeing as you've been working so hard." Gideon brightens. "Oh, thanks, Millie. I've been thinking real often about your cooking." He smiles at her, shy. "All of us had. Benjamin said them flapjacks were the best he ever had. Caleb said that pie was like he'd died and gone straight to heaven. Daniel said Adam should have grabbed hold of you afore someone else did, or at least grabbed hold of somebody so he didn't have to eat my cooking. Adam said you weren't a flapjack for grabbing or a body just for cooking either. Ephraim didn't say nothing. He was too busy stuffing his gob. Frank said..." And then his face changes. "Frank!" "What?" "Adam said what?" Millie starts and stops short as Tom's head reappears, cross as a cake bear. "Millie!" he bellows. "Another Barnaby! I ain't paying it again!" And then his head vanishes. Abruptly, Tom's solid back is filling the doorway, and a body's trying to shove itself through the gaps, out elbows and grab a copper. "Gideon, where you at?" The noise picks itself up right sudden from that point on. There's shouting, a lot of shouting. Millie springs to her feet, but Gideon's beside her, knife in one hand, potato in the other, looking guilty. "Oh, heck, I plumb forgot. I went and left him in the wagon." "Millie, it's Frank. You gotta let him in. It's Frank." This, she assumes, is meant to be some kind of explanation. But that familiar bit of color's telling enough. She grabs the door and raises her voice. "It's all right, boys," she hollers. "Let him in. He's come to help with the cooking." There's more shouting. Of course, there's always shouting where a bunch of overgrown layabouts are concerned. Eventually, though, the menfolk figure out their ears from their rears and slope back off to their drinking and chewing and spitting. Tom grumbles himself back behind the bar after looking on in to check that Millie's fine and the food's not worse. Gideon sits back down. The door swings shut. And then another grubby-faced Barnaby is looming over Millie's kitchen table, clutching his ragged shirt and looking like he could eat a horse and would if you just stepped away for a minute. Good heavens! Just looking at him, staring first at her, then at the house biscuits, then at Gideon slicing potatoes, then back at the biscuits, then at the tubs of roots for chopping, and back at the biscuits again. Is the whole family starved? Is the whole family taller than barns? Taller, red-headed, and still too bony by half. This one even is all over whiskers, a little like Adam before he shaved. Millie swallows hard and shoves that thought away with a tub of carrots, clears her throat. "Frank Barnaby?" I named that. Just like, good grief, she needs to stop. Frank Barnaby is staring at her again, although she guesses it won't be for long with the biscuit still steaming away on the bench. He gawps at her like she's up and grown another head. "Yep," he rasps. "Frank!" Gideon says quickly. "This is Millie, Adam's Millie. She says if we help her with the cooking, we can have stew and biscuits." He points at the pot steaming on the stove. "You hungry?" "Adam's! Millie! Oh, mercy." Millie opens her mouth to object, but seems Frank's made up his mind. "Yeah," he says again, shoving dirty sleeves up. "I'm starving. What do I do?"